America's Liberation Day is here, viewers, and the world is bracing for how Trump defines liberation. The countdown has begun for the reciprocal tariffs on India and several other nations to kick in, and even though the US president has said that he will be kind and more generous, nobody really knows what he will do to fulfill one of his biggest campaign promises. India has had several rounds of talks in the last few weeks here in New Delhi as well as in Washington, D.C., with American officials, with the Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal leading the negotiations. In fact, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has often highlighted the 100% tariff that India imposes on American agricultural products. She in fact pointed to similar tariffs being imposed by other nations, such as the European Union bloc with 50% on American dairy, Japan with a whopping 700% on American rice, and Canada with 300% on American butter and cheese. Now, while there are concerns of trade wars and a recession worse than the 90s, Donald Trump also seems to be bringing together enemies. China, South Korea, and Japan have decided that they will deal with the tariffs together, an unprecedented trio considering their past history of conflict. Canada, meanwhile, slapped back tariffs, with Prime Minister Mark Carney also saying that the old US-Canada relationship is now over. And that is why the Trump tariffs are not just about trade. It's also about completely changing American alliances and therefore the geopolitical ties around the world. How will it impact India's relationship with the United States of America? And will the Modi government be able to ace their diplomacy game with the very, very unpredictable dawn? We get answers to this in a few hours from now, but let's decode this for you as to what we can expect once Donald Trump does announce those tariffs. On the show tonight, I'm joined by Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, former ambassador. Ambassador Sajjanhar, good evening, namaskar. Thank you very much for joining us on Global Mirror. What are your expectations? In just a few hours from now, we will be seeing Donald Trump announcing what he calls Liberation Day for America. We'll get to know exactly how much of tariffs have been slapped against India. What are your expectations? Will we get some sort of relief, or will Donald Trump, equate us with the likes of Canada and Mexico and China?
Yeah, thank you very much, Shreya. It's not only difficult, it's absolutely impossible to predict what Donald Trump has in mind. I think he has surprised everyone around with his statements, in terms of relationship, transatlantic partnership, relations with the European Union, what he's done to Canada, Mexico, even China, and the way he's reached out. Of course, that's in the strategic and security area to Russia. So, totally unpredictable. But that having been said, I would imagine that, there are a couple of things that should work in India's favor. I don't know whether they are ultimately going to work or not. We'll have, in a couple of hours, we'll be able to see that. But, when Prime Minister Modi went there within the 4 weeks of his taking over his position as president. So, in February 12, 13, he was there in about 3 weeks or so, and good discussions. So on all areas, whether it is import of energy from the United States, defense engagement, defense partnership, expanding that on the issue of Quad, so many other things. We had total agreement, even as far as the tariff issue is concerned, the trade surplus that India has of about $36 odd billion, which incidentally, amongst all the countries with which America trades, and it has trade deficits with them, other countries have trade surplus. India is about the 10th or 11th in terms of, the quantum of trade surplus that we have. So it's not very large. It is pretty nominal. It is pretty not very significant, let me put it this way. That having been said, the two leaders decided that we'll engage with each other and have a bilateral trade agreement by this fall. So hopefully September, October, when Mr. Trump is also expected to visit India for the Quad summit. And then after that, Mr. Piyush Goyal, as you said very rightly, has gone there. Then there was a team late last month, 4 days. They had discussions, deliberations. So I'm hopeful that, taking into account that we have this agreement between the two sides, between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, that was signed. And we have indicated our good faith in terms of, meeting the concerns of the United States. Because even as far as our budget is concerned, on the
Okay.
1st of February, we brought down some of the tariffs. Even on bourbon whiskey, we brought
Yeah.
down the tariffs. So I think we've indicated
Yes.
our good faith. So I'm hopeful that it will be, the tariffs would be there, but hopefully they'll not be very significant.
You know, Master Sajjanhar, it's also very interesting how the tariffs go beyond just trade between the two countries. In his latest statement, Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel has said that he's going to be cutting down all duties on American imports right ahead of this tariff announcement that we're expecting from Donald Trump. So clearly, countries are sort of maneuvering their way as far as their relationship with the United States of America is concerned, with the least kind of harm that they can get upon themselves from these tariffs. But obviously, once he announces that equation that the US has with its allies might also change, might be impacted. Case in point, Canada.
Yeah, you're very right, Shreya. Case in point, Canada. Case in point, Mexico. Case in point, China, because China has also imposed tariffs, although so far, you know what, Mr.
Yeah.
Trump had threatened that he's going to impose 60% tariffs on China. So far, he's imposed only two tranches of 10% each. So, that can go. And we've seen even in Trump 1.0, when he had imposed tariffs on steel, aluminum, etc., on European Union, on China, they had retaliated. So, and they have threatened, they have said as much that they are going to retaliate. And, just for consideration and information of your listeners and viewers, it's not only relations between those countries and the United States. You would have seen how China has reached out to to India for the first time, saying that this huge trade deficit that India has with China, that they are willing to import more from India. And as far as the huge trade surplus that China has, to reduce that trade surplus, that I think is again a tactical move which has really been generated only because China is, feeling that it has its back to the wall, and it needs to find alternate markets for its goods and have better relations with other countries, that it is reaching out to India.
You know what's also another interesting aspect, Ambassador Sajjanhar, to this tariff announcement is how, as I talked about earlier, is getting enemies together. You've got China, South Korea, and Japan saying that we will jointly tackle the Trump tariffs, and these are countries that have been at loggerheads as far as their territorial disputes are concerned for the past several years, and now you have three of them coming together to counter Donald Trump. That's an interesting geopolitical dynamic that's going to be playing out.
No, absolutely. You're very right. I think right now, under these circumstances, you cannot divorce geopolitics from geoeconomics. I think both are very, closely interlinked. And that is why we have seen that all these countries who are facing the brunt of attack from the United States, from Mr. Trump, that they are getting together. And this will also, even as far as Europe is concerned, it will bring them also, most of them together, notwithstanding, some of the minor differences that they might have. Britain has moved out, UK has moved out of the European Union. It's no longer, but I think as far as their strategies are concerned, in the geopolitical as well as in the geo-economic field, they are they will, try to tune their responses in such a manner that they are working together. But you are very right when you say that these three countries, and they have overtly mentioned as such that, they are going to deal with these tariffs together. There has always been a problem between Japan and South Korea. There has always been, a territorial dispute between Japan and China. And the fact that these countries are coming together, I think that is a very big deal.
My last question to you, Ambassador Sajjanhar, Europe perhaps would be the hardest hit, and several economists say that more than this part of the world, India and all of these countries in Southeast Asia, they would be less impacted, but Europe and the European Union bloc is going to be the hardest hit, and perhaps Donald Trump's, aim is also that to take out more money from Europe, which he says has been unfairly charging them.
I think as far as Europe is concerned, it's a double whammy for them. Why I say it's a double whammy is because on the security aspect, Trump has said that he's not going to, or at least he is significantly, the way it has been happening with Ukraine, what happened in the Oval Office on the 28th of February. After that, he stopped all assistance to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And then after a few days, when President Zelensky said that he's willing to sign on the dotted line as far as the mineral deal is concerned, he agreed with that. But still, no one knows as to, how he is going to take it forward. He has been repeating, the same position, the same talking points as far as President Putin is concerned. That Mr. Zelensky does not have any leverage, he does not have any cards. All the territory that has been occupied by Russia, it would be unreasonable to, think that they would be able to vacate them. So I think first pressure is on this particular aspect, where Europe considers it is a matter of their own security. The security of Ukraine is very intrinsically linked with their own security. And the second is as far as the trade and tariff issues are concerned. And what he has threatened is that if there are going to be counter tariffs from Europe, then he is going to have, penal tariffs even on significant exports like wines and champagne and cheese from France and, from the other dairy exporters. So I think it's going to really hit them hard where it hurts them the most, both on security as well as on trade, because other countries in, let's say, other regions, they are, paying in their fair share as far as, in the Quad. We are all paying our fair share. So, there it will not impact so much. It will only be trade. But Europe is going to be affected the most.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it there. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, thanks very much for joining us tonight and sharing your perspective. Let's see what Donald Trump has in store for all of us. Thanks very much.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you.